Join me in welcoming the next presenter is Ms. So Samborai. She is a 2020 Hiroshima University graduate under JPS Scholarship Program. Her topic is about investigating teacher trainees and teacher trainers' misconceptions on atoms and molecules. Please welcome her.
Okay, good morning all senses, good morning everyone. My name is So Samborai. So today I would like to present the finding of the research entitled is Investigating Teacher Trainees and Teacher Trainers Misconceptions on Atoms and Molecules. So based on the education strategy plan in 2014-2018, to enhance students' understanding in scientific concept, and also another one from the Cambodia teacher policies in 2013 point to ensure the quality of pre-service teacher trainings. And based on the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport in 2017 also want to improve both teaching method and content for the teachers to have a well-rounded competencies. And actually, many misconceptions have been identified on a variety of subjects and topics, such as from Swai and Simisu in 2011, found that in physics, and another one in 2015 in mathematics, in another subject like biology, and also earth science and chemistry. Now we look at the empirical evidence that students have misconception in chemistry. That from the Uj and Simisu in 2017, they found that students have the misconception in the characteristic of solid, liquid, and gas. For example, they think that gas has no mass. And another research, they found that students have misconception in the atomic structure. For example, they think that an electron is a wave. And another area, another part of the chemistry in the chemical reaction. For example, they think that the rate of reaction remains stable from start to finish. And another point is in the molecule, that the students think that the water molecule consists of 2 molecules of hydrogen and 1 of oxygen. Now we look at the problem statement in this study. From the recent study in 2017 and 2016, they found that pre-service science teachers also had difficulty in grasping abstract concepts of atoms. If you look at the Cambodia teacher policies, aims to ensure the quality of pre-service teacher trainings from in 2013, and however the VVOP report in 2016 found that misconception exists not only with the teacher trainers but also with the teacher trainees in chemistry subject at the Provincial Teacher Training Center. And another research found that in 2015 that Cambodian teacher trainers failed to provide sufficient knowledge and contents. Therefore, this study will focus on investigating teacher trainees and teacher trainers misconceptions on atoms and molecules at the selected provincial teacher training centers and teacher education college in Cambodia. So the objective of this study is to identify and analyze both teacher trainees and teacher trainers misconceptions in atoms and molecules. And to reach this objective, I have 3 research questions. First is, what misconceptions do teacher trainees and teacher trainers have regarding atoms and molecules? The second one, what type of misconceptions do teacher trainees and teacher trainers have regarding atoms and molecules? And the third one is, what are the causes for teacher trainees and teacher trainers misconceptions? So now we look at the definition of the misconception. Actually, there are many misconceptions, or there are many definitions in the term of misconception. For example, from Swai and Simisu in 2011, they mentioned that the student always have the prior knowledge coming from the family, books, TV, culture, or previous lesson, and the knowledge is not scientifically acceptable. They call misconception, and so on. Actually, from those definitions, the common point from those definitions that is all the student idea that they bring to their learning and not completely accurate concept. This study also defined the definition of misconception is the prior knowledge constructed based on the previous lesson that the student provide concepts with the incorrect scientific concepts. Now we look at the literature review in this study related to the misconception in atoms and molecules. But I will move to the summary of the literature review. That we found that they found the student or previous science teacher or teacher had in different area, in different part of the concept of atom and molecule. Like from Kira in 2016, they found that students have misconception in atomic structure, for example, an electron is a well, and also on another point in the characteristic of atoms, that the atom is a smaller living organism since cell consists of atoms. And another part is in isotope, that the total number of nucleons equal to the number of electrons. And another point in the concept of atom and molecule and ion, that the student confused that atoms, molecule, and ion are about the synonyms, and about also the bonding, that they think that ionic bonding comprises sharing of electrons. And this study used quantitative research, and the researchers developed the test of multiple choice and agree disagree question. And in each test item, we use open-ended for the student that can explain the reason why they choose that answer. So this is the example in the test item. And based on the result of the reliability of the pilot test, we revised from the 20 questions to 17 questions. And the content of the test was checked and revised according to the comments from the 4 chemistry teachers. And we score from 0 to 3, and we use multi-stack cluster random sampling. We divide it into 4 areas. One area we choose 1 PTTC and plus 2 TEC in Cambodia. The total sample in this study is 1,049 teacher trainees and 16 teacher trainers. We used only descriptive statistics. And now we look at the reliability of the test. From the pilot test, we got the Crobat alpha is 0.6, and in the main study, we got 0.881. We can see that this study, the reliability of this study is acceptable. And this is the answer from the teacher trainees, and the answer from the research question number 4. And I conclude that they think the atomic numbers equal to the number of electrons in the outer cell. And this is another example from their answer. And I conclude that they think there are 2 types of atoms, positive atoms and negative atoms, which form molecules. And from the research question number 1, what misconceptions do teacher trainees and teacher trainers have in atom and molecule? So we found there are 10 misconceptions from the teacher trainees, and then we choose a higher percentage as a common misconception in 3 components. And from the teacher trainers, we found 6 misconceptions, and then we choose a higher percentage as a common misconception in 2 components. After that, we choose the common misconceptions from both teacher trainees and teacher trainers. We found there are 2 common misconceptions. One, there are 2 types of atoms, positive atoms and negative atoms, which form molecule. And another one, an atom has the same size as its ions. Now we look at the research question number 2. What type of misconception do teacher trainees and teacher trainers have? Based on the handbook of science teaching reconsidered in 1997 has pointed out that science misconception can be categorized into 5 types. First is preconceived notion that is routine in everyday experiences or incomplete observation. The second one is non-scientific beliefs that they learn from the other non-scientific sources. And the third one is conceptual misunderstanding that the student might misapply general principle. The fourth one is vernacular misconception that the student misunderstanding the meaning of the words between everyday life and scientific context. And the fifth one is factual misconception that the student falsities often learn at early age and retain unchallenged into adulthood. And this is the general principle about the concept of atom and molecule in the Cambodia context. And then I can summary into 3 points. The first point talk about the atoms. Second talk about the second point talk about the ion, and the third point talk about the molecule. And now if we look at the misconception about the concept of atom and molecule related to each type of misconception, that we can say that the concept of atoms and molecule not related to the preconceived notion, because this concept is not happen in everyday experiences, and also non-scientific belief also no, because no non-scientific sources explain about the atoms and molecule. And for conceptual misunderstanding, maybe yes, because the student learn the general principle at the grade 8 and grade 10. So it might student misapply general principle of the concept of atoms and molecule. And for vernacular misconception, maybe no, because they don't use different words like atoms and molecules. And for factual misconception, so also no, because at early age or at primary school, the student do not learn the concept of atom and molecule. So now if we look at the two common misconceptions that we found in this study, we can see that from the first misconception, the student might confuse with atoms and ion, and also confuse molecule are made up of positive atoms and negative atoms. And another common misconception that an atom has the same size as its ion, the student might confuse the numbers of electron cell make the same size. So based on this confusion, I can say that the teacher trainees might misapply general principle. So I can say those two misconceptions are under the conceptual misunderstanding. So now we move to the research question number 3. What are the causes of the teacher trainees and teacher trainer misconceptions? So from the recent study in 2019 listed 7 causes of the misconception. One from the books or material, the second from the teacher language, the third one might be from the family members, the fourth one from the media, and the fifth one from the cultural belief, the sixth from the student personal belief, and the last one the student peer group. And now we look at the finding from this study. We found 3 points. The first one, we found that more than 80% of the teacher trainers at 4 PTTC are not specialized in chemistry. And another point, more than 50% of the teacher trainers have not yet received any training related to the contents of atoms and molecules. So based on these 2 points, I can conclude that the teacher trainers have difficult to convince on the content knowledge and less confident in teaching and representation. And from another point that we found in this study also, more than 80% that students learn by reading the textbook and listening to the teacher. So from the previous study from Moto and Maeda in 2002, they found that some important content in Cambodia textbook are not introduced appropriately, and some concepts also are missing. And another study found that from Klang 2013, she said some keywords do not and mistake sentences. So I conclude from those previous research that textbook do not always give complete explanation. And also from the last point that maybe the ability of the student to think and to understand the right concept is limited. And another one is teachers provide ineffective learning and having less communication between teacher and student. So this also might be the causes of misconception. So I conclude that the causes of this might from the teacher, the textbook, and also the learner. That can be the cause of the misconception in this study. So this table shows that the causes of misconception in this study with other study, that we can see that also some can the same and some different. Now we look at the conclusion. So based on the result of this study, I can conclude that both teacher trainees and teacher trainers have some misconception about atoms and molecules. And the weaknesses of the teacher trainees and teacher trainers' understanding of the concept of atom and molecule also existed at PTTC and TEC. And the conceptual misunderstanding about the lesson has shown up in the student and teacher reasoning. And the learning style of only reading the textbook and teaching style of only lecturing in the classroom may be the reason for misconceptions. And the training about the new concept, including atoms and molecule concept, have not been provided to all teacher trainers yet. And also the tests in this study can easily be used to find students' misconception in the learning process. So based on the finding of this study, we make some recommendation that we can inform to the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport in how to prepare training for the science teacher trainers at PTTC and TEC in Cambodia. And also, one-way teaching should avoid in the real classroom because teacher will not know the student prior knowledge. And also, we can inform to the teacher trainers that misconceptions have already existed from the prior teacher trainees. And we can also inform to the chemistry teachers who are teaching at the junior or high school level to check the student understanding after he or she finished their lessons. For the limitation of this study, I can say that this result of this study are only on the quantitative research analysis by giving the test. So actual observations in classrooms should conduct to see how teacher trainers are introducing and students are learning the concept of atoms and ion and molecule. And for future research that we should collect the lesson videos to see how teacher trainers explain the concepts of atoms and molecules. And more researchers also need to diagnose the misconception on different topics. And also determine the strategy to solve misconception in Cambodia context. And this is my reference. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Ms. Sosamborai. We now accept questions from the audience. Please feel free to raise any questions you may have. Oh, one question from Maki Sensei. So what do you do to implement your recommendations? The same question as Mr. Jayutha. So what do you do to implement your recommendations?
This one? Okay, yes.
Yes.
From the recommendation that what do I do? Right?
Right.
Okay, yes. Actually, based on the result of this study, that we found some misconceptions exist with the teacher trainees and the teacher trainers, and also that we can just inform to the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport that they can prepare training to the science teachers, because we found that most of the science teacher at the provincial teacher training center are not specialized in chemistry. So like they not specialize in chemistry, but they specialize in biology, and some specialize in like librarian. So it might be difficult for them. So if we have training that can support them to understand more about the content of the concept of atoms and molecule, or other topic related to the chemistry, it might help them to understand more, and it might help them to avoid misconception, something like this. I don't know I answer Marki's question or not.
No more. Thank you very much for your response. I think there are further questions raised, so yes, it might be good to move to other questions.
From Mr. or Miss, I'm not sure, Mal Seraini. The question is, could you please explain the concept of real classroom as you mentioned in the recommendation specifically? What
real
is
classroom?
the concept of real classroom?
Okay, yes. The real classroom in the limitation that I mentioned, I mean that when they teach the lesson related to the concept of atom and molecule, so I can see that how can the teacher and the student react in the classroom. How can the teacher teach, not just like to make up the lesson, just to see that when they teach, how do teacher do? How does teacher do in the classroom, and how the student answer, or how the student learn in the classroom. This is the real classroom that I mean in the limitation. Thank you.
Let me pick up one more question from Mr. Pan Chamran. Thanks for your presentation. The question is that what causes the misconception for teachers and how to eliminate that?
Okay. Yes. The causes that I found in this study, I found that because of the teacher that why the teacher have misconceptions, because as I also mentioned earlier that those teachers are not specialized in chemistry. One teacher specialized in library, that she is librarian, and other specialized in biology, and other specialized in mathematics. So they are not familiar with the chemistry concepts. So it might make them to have like difficult to explain when they teach the chemistry concepts. This is also the one cause that make the teacher have misconceptions. So they are not clear about the content. So when they teach, so they just follow the textbook. So it might help them to have misconception.
Thank you very much. Actually, Ms. Vorai, we still have more questions for you, but because of the time constraints, I would like to ask for all the participants' apology and move on to the next presenter.
Okay, hi, thank you.